All right, man. Well, we're live.
Nice.
So, welcome everyone to what are we calling this again?
Uh, Campfire Conversationalist Podcast.
Okay, so welcome to the Campfire Conversational Podcast, and don't try to say that too many times in a row. But all right, Matt, why don't you explain? What are we going to talk about?
Pretty much just whatever we want, or I want, or you want. I just want to be able to have a conversation and do whatever I want, I guess. And sometimes maybe we'll talk about stuff that people might not normally want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that's good.
Okay.
Sometimes people, I think, maybe a little afraid to hear stuff and they get turned off by it, but I'm not. I'm pretty open minded.
Okay. Well, what do you want to start talking about first? Because I know you and we've talked about quite a few things, and we've talked about we've talked about everything. I mean, from global conspiracies to to everything from like flat Earth uh, to everything. Talking about flat Earth, I actually just watched a documentary, and I've listened to a couple other podcasters talk about it. And when people hear like the flat Earth thing, not that I'm flat Earth pro, but when people hear flat Earth, like the first thought is like, why would anyone logically believe in flat Earth? You know, and I know when I watched the documentary the other day, that was the constant reoccurring theme in my brain. Like, why am I watching a documentary on flat Earth? Like, you know,
Which one did you watch?
I think it was something on either Netflix or Amazon or something like that. And they went to a convention, and at the convention, like, they were watching. And I gotta say, all the people that I seen at the convention, if I seen them like at that convention, I would be like thinking the same thing. Like, these people are freaking crazy. But some of the arguments that were behind it, I wasn't convinced by the arguments. But some of them I could see why they were believing what they were believing. Like, they were very astute arguments and very well proposed in a way that if you didn't really logically think about it, I could see why it would be appealing. It's not as outlandish as people would think. Like, in other words, the attack on NASA, it was the space shuttles, and the landing on Mars, was that all staged and things like that. The arguments that they posed, they were framed in such a way that if you didn't, I don't know, if you really didn't put a whole lot of thought into them, or if you did, I guess they're believable arguments. The part that struck me though was the fact that even though they had these believable arguments, there was like parts of their own theories that they didn't have answers to.
Such as,
The ice ring around the Earth,
okay,
and why we cannot traverse that ice ring.
okay. So I've never really talked to you super in depth about this,
Yeah.
but I've done a ton of research into this subject.
Okay.
Like, I'm talking probably about 2 weeks after Autumn was born,
Mm-hmm.
and I obsessively have done tons of research. I'm talking probably thousands of hours, not exaggerating.
Okay.
So like, there's there's probably not one topic when it comes to the flat Earth overall debate that I don't know at least the the given answers.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it gets down to, okay, so when it gets down to some of the super fine details of things,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I kind of don't. I'm kind of I don't understand certain things. Um, like for instances, eclipses. To me, it doesn't matter if we're talking globe Earth or flat Earth. They don't make 100% sense either way. Like I can look at it from both ways and go, okay, and I can look at it from both ways and go, I really don't. I don't know what, I just don't understand. I think because of the way I'm visualizing it, I'm not seeing it right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like when it gets down to super technical things, I sometimes I'm like,
Well, did you
but
to that? Let me answer this or ask this actually. In school, I mean, did you ever do the experiment where you put like the light bulb in the center of all the little model planets and hold it up and see the different shadows on the different planets as you go out further and further?
no, I don't think that we ever did that. Or if we did, I don't remember.
I mean, because you can get the eclipse off of those model planets just off of that design. Like, say you take the light bulb in the center and you take the models and you line them up, or one in front of the other, or six in a row. You're gonna get the eclipse, and then you factor in the moon. If you take the moon and put it out there, and I'm not debunking it with this. I'm just asking, like, did you ever do this? Because we did it
No,
in school. We did that in like fifth grade.
Or I don't remember if we did.
Yeah.
But that's probably a whole other topic because, right. That's just, me not having done it or don't remember doing it's another topic. But so back to the ice ring. What questions do you have? And let's see if I can answer it. You were starting off with, why can't we go there, or why can't we get past it?
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah. Every
so
single person at the convention that they ask about the ice ring and ask about traversing the ice ring, they basically said it is impossible. And even if you can traverse it to where you get to where you're standing on the edge, your eyes at that point will be deceived because it'll either be too cold or you'll be too far up and your eyes will not see things clearly. And my question was, like, why can't we traverse it, number one? And why would we, if we can't believe our eyes when we get on top of the traversing of, if we can't believe our eyes up there, why can we believe our eyes down here? Why are our eyes down here any different?
No, I've never heard that particular argument about our eyes not being able to believe our eyes traversing it. So here's what I've learned when I've done a ton of research. The reason Antarctica is a huge obstacle, there's a bunch of reasons. Number one, there's between any of the continents and Antarctica, there's obviously ocean, lots of ocean. And
this is in flat Earth theory, correct?
It doesn't matter what model you're talking about.
Okay.
Between the continents and Antarctica, there's nothing but ocean and also icebergs in the water. So you can't just take a regular boat or ship there. So there's that obstacle. You can't just, I'm going to go sail a sailboat down there and I'm going to climb a 200-foot, ice wall. That, probably most human beings can't do that physically. And then, so there's the obvious, like, natural kind of things to maybe want to keep people away. The extreme weather, the shoreline, which people call the ice wall. It's a shoreline. And then, the ocean in between any of the continents and the shore or shoreline. And then the next thing is, and this is something that you can look up. It's fact. It's not a theory. There's this thing called the Antarctic Treaty, and it was signed in, I believe, I want to say 58, and then somewhere around 57, 58, and then I think it somewhere between 57, 58, and 63, right in there, was the Antarctic Treaty. And basically, this was started by all, like, the major powers in the world. So the United States, Russia, Europe or the European countries, um, some of the South American countries, Australia, New Zealand, they've all signed this treaty, and this treaty basically states that you or me, we can't just go to the Antarctic unless it's for science.
Well,
And
yeah, but there's cruises that go down there all the time. I mean, I can
right,
I can go pay 2 grand right now and hop on a cruise that'll take me through and right by Antarctica.
well, you can go up to the shoreline,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to get on the shoreline from a cruise ship, or if you are, it's not going to. You can't go far from the cruise ship. And in the treaty, um, you if you do manage to be able to get a government approval from one of the countries that have signed the treaty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way, when it started
But
out, I
how?
believe it was
But how
12
would anyone
countries.
know? I mean,
Know what?
know that you're there. You know. I mean,
Well, I mean,
nobody's down there and would really know. I mean, if I were to say I had $1 million, okay, and I decided I wanted to buy a ship and I wanted my ship to go down there, is anybody really gonna know?
I mean, you kind of flipping a coin at that point. It's like
And what are they gonna
going
do?
to Area 51 in a way.
Oh, I mean, what are they gonna
Um,
do? Blow you out of the water? I mean,
Well, it's supposedly there is military, different militaries from different countries that guard certain parts of it, whether it be on land or by boat or by air. Now, I've never been there, so I can't prove that, but you've never been there, so you can't disprove it. It's one of
Right.
those things.
Right.
But going back to the treaty, originally, I think about 12 countries had signed this treaty, and now it's up to like 53 or 58 or something like that. There's like a lot of these countries that have signed this treaty saying that no company, no or individual, no corporation can go there unless basically you have permission from your government. And it's basically if it's a science expedition, you might be able to get permission to go there. But then once you're there at one of the bases there in Antarctic where they have their stations, you can't go very far outside of that area unless you're escorted. And you can look up the treaty
Could that
and read it for
be-
yourself.
well, could that just be because it's a continent? Okay, it's a massive land, and these are all obviously hypotheses, at best. But say you have a big plot of land, and all these countries come together and they realize there's nothing here except for penguins and sea lions. That's pretty much it. And they come together and they say, well, what if in 30 years someone finds oil there? Well, it's like negative 50 degrees all year round. I mean, back when they signed this treaty, they probably didn't have the means or the resources to go into a climate that's negative 50. So maybe I'm just proposing a theory that maybe they looked at it and said, there's a giant continent down here. And what if, say, France decides they want to go down, and now this is New France, there's a giant continent, dude. So France overnight gained a continent the size of Europe. Is that plausible or?
So back in 1940 something, I want to say late 40s, Admiral Byrd, Byrd, actually was commissioned by the government of the United States of America to go and explore Antarctica. And you can actually look up video of him in an interview from that era, from the late 40s. And what he says is that there are resources there. And there's, I'm trying to think how he worded it. There is an area size of the continental U.S. right across from what he says the South Pole.
Now, here's another question for you. Okay, talking about not being able to go on the land. Okay? You can go all around the land, but you can't go on the land. That's what the treaty says, right?
Correct.
Okay, so
No, to be fair, I
you can
haven't
go
read through the treaty
I
recently.
haven't either. I mean, this is the first
So
I've heard about it. I'm just trying to make logical sense of why a government would, or a collective group of governments would put together such a treaty and trying to assimilate like why this makes logical sense. But
that's a good question to ask.
I'm also thinking like well, I mean, this is all leading or this is supposed to lead back to flat earth theory, okay?
Correct.
Which if you had a ship that went around the continent of Antarctica, okay? Which I know there's ships that have done it. I mean, doesn't that kind of disprove right away the whole ice on the border issue if they can just go right around it?
Right around what? The wall?
Right around the continent.
You can go around the continent either way. I mean, if it's on a ball, then you would go around, on the bottom, so to speak. And if
Yeah,
it
but if it
was,
was flat,
you'd go around the outside of it. And
so
there's
where would be the edge though of the earth
well, well,
allegedly?
it'd be beyond the ice wall. Like I said, the ice wall. People use the word ice wall, and that's probably bad terminology, but it literally is a wall of ice. You can photos of it. So that's why people call it an ice wall, but it's really a shoreline. So beyond that shoreline, there's more land. Antarctica. I don't know how big it is in comparison to anything because, like I said, I've never been there. I don't know anybody that's been there. I assume it's pretty big. Now, it depends on who you ask. A lot of flat earthers tend to believe that there's a dome, and at the edge of the land would be presumably the dome. And some flat earthers believe that there is that we live on an infinite plane. So instead of having an infinite universe, we live on an infinite plane. And a lot of times people who believe that we live on an infinite plane tend to believe, well, if there's aliens, then that's probably where they came from a land and an atmosphere and climates similar to ours, but just extremely far away, and they figured out how to come across from wherever they live to wherever we live. I personally don't believe in aliens. I think there's UFOs, but that doesn't mean there's aliens.
Yeah.
But I'm
Well, I
stating
mean,
that's
UFO meaning unidentified flying object, not necessarily, unidentified flying alien,
right. But people equate the two, so I had to
Yeah.
clarify. I think there's UFOs, but I don't think that there's aliens. That's
You
my
really
personal
think that we're
opinion.
the only ones here in the universe? Like, if it's, I mean, even stepping away from infinite plane flat earther theory, just for a second, like, you really think that we're like the only ones in a vast expanse of space?
I do, yeah. I don't think there's anybody else.
Nobody? No
No,
other life other than on Earth?
nope.
So what if there is 100 Earths out there? Not one of them has any kind of life? Like, what if there's, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt. What if there is one Earth out there, okay, that is fully capable of sustaining life? There's not another chance of life out there? Anywhere?
Let's put it to you like this. Let's
Does
say
that
there's an
mean,
island out in the ocean
yeah.
that is perfectly capable of sustaining life. That doesn't mean any human being lives there. Can they
Mm-hmm.
live there? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean anybody does.
Right.
That'd be my answer. I'm not saying that no I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm pretty open minded. I'm willing to look at whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as anything that I've seen, I don't think there's any aliens, and if there are, I don't think that they've come to Earth. I'm
You don't think
more
that the
confident
government has, like, Roswell? Or
I think there's
or the
psyops.
or the old Area 51 before obviously they moved everything to another base.
No, I think they're psyops. I mean, You can look into Project Bluebeam, which is a government operation or project where they basically fake an alien invasion to for whatever, I don't know, whatever their end game is. I don't know as far as that, but Project Bluebeam is where the government stages fake alien invasion. And um that's not just some crazy conspiracy theory, because in interviews you can the woman who was the, I guess you could say, secretary or for Werner von Braun, um I forget her name off the top of my head, but she has said in multiple interviews that Werner von Braun had told her personally that there would be, I'm trying to think how she worded. She said, I think she was worried about the communists because this would have been in the 70s or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So she was worried about the communists, and he laughed and he chuckled and he said, you know, something about, well, there's no red threat. And then he said the next thing will be the terrorists. And I'm this is a paraphrase. This isn't not an exact quote.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, there'll be terrorists, and he said, and then the final one will be aliens, and he said that they'll all of them will have been faked. So that's, Werner von Braun was in the government. He
Well,
was in the know.
he was the leader of NASA, or in charge of their space program. I'm not sure
Yeah.
he's like entirely credible, even being in that position. I don't know. Me and aliens. Do I think that there's aliens? I think there's things that we can't explain, is what I think. And I think if there is life out there, does it pose a threat? I think the unknown poses a threat, because with the unknown comes fear, and the fear of not knowing exactly what you're dealing with. Say some guy, a random guy, comes up to your house and knocks on your door. Okay? Back in the 40s, people would just open the door, you'd offer him to come in, you'd cook him dinner, you know what I mean, and you'd send him away. But
Right.
times have changed. And nowadays, some stranger comes to your door, you're instantly looking to see where your kids are. You're looking to see if you got a gun that's readily accessible. And that guy's tire might have just broke down the street, but you don't know that. It's the
Dude.
fear of the unknown that really grips people and takes them to places mentally that they're not prepared for. Now, you throw aliens into the mix. So even if there were aliens, or if there are aliens, if they came to Earth, it's not going to be, I don't really think it's going to be like Mars Attacks, to where they're like friendly and then all of a sudden they just start shooting people in Congress. Yeah.
Wait, come on, base.
I don't think they're just going to start shooting people in Congress. I think it would be more like,
Come on.
I think it'd be more.
I didn't say that out loud.
I think it would be more like they start, like, people panicking, and freaking out just at the sight, because they've seen too many movies and hysteria gets the best of them.
I can't disagree with that. I mean, if in the scenario that there were aliens, let's say it doesn't matter if the threat is real, if it's a real alien invasion or a faked one by the government.
Yeah.
I think either way, people will freak out.
Yeah. And
I think
it'd be mass hysteria.
I think the media would make it worse.
Yeah.
It would totally be pornographicized. How, I don't know, that's not the right word. Pornographic.
I don't want to live in that universe.
Porn. It would be media porn if there was a real or fake alien invasion. It would be disgusting,
Yeah.
the things that the media would do, and they would get people freaked out.
Yeah. I agree. So back to flat Earth. Do you think this ice barrier, do you think this is like a plausible thing? And what about like not being like to traverse it? Like, why couldn't we traverse it? Why can't we just jump on a plane and fly over the ice barrier into the infinite verse?
Of the openness,
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, you could, But realistically, I mean, could you and I do that? I mean, I've talked about this with my cousin. I mean, I've literally sat there and thought, man, if my cousin and I could figure out a way to be billionaires, I'd do it. I'd do it. I'd
Well, yeah,
go.
but what about
I'd
the
figure
people
out
that
how to do
are? I
it.
mean, like, what's your boy's name from Tesla? You know, Elon
Elon
Musk.
Musk.
Yeah. I mean, why isn't that guy? Why is he trying to go into outer space if he could just like, if he could just take
Because
a
the
plane?
government gives him money for rockets. That's why
I thought he was like on the
I'm,
outs.
he
I
SpaceX
thought they
is
didn't
funded
like
by NASA.
yeah, but I thought they didn't like the idea of SpaceX. I thought that was like the X. Like, don't do that.
I mean, they fund him. I don't know what the government thinks about him, but he's funded by the government.
Okay. Well, what about any other
I mean, he's
billionaire?
the government's his client, so to speak, because who else would be paying him to take rockets into space to whatever the ISS or whatever?
Yeah. Well,
He'd have to be doing it for the government because they'd be the only clients up there.
what about any other millionaire or billionaire? I mean, there's plenty of them.
So, what's his name? Bronson.
There you go.
He's been trying to go to space and selling tickets on low Earth orbit space flights for since 2006 for $200,000 a piece, and he hasn't had very many successful trials with the aircraft that he's trying to use. In fact, some of his pilots have died, and I mean we're talking 2006 now, 2019. That's a pretty long amount of time to have no progress as far as you basically promised people you're going to take them into low Earth orbit, whatever you want to call it, and that really hasn't happened. I mean, people have paid money, and there have been no commercial actual flights. There's been whatever test runs they've done, but there's not been any commercial flights by Virgin Galactic or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of what Bronson's company or whatever his name is, but and then other private ones besides Elon Musk. I know there is another one, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But as far as I've seen, there's really been no commercial or privatized successful launches into quote unquote space, with the exception of Elon Musk, whose only client is the government.
Okay.
So NASA,
Well,
basically.
yeah, but I mean, just getting a plane, like you said at the beginning of this, like, assuming we had enough money, we could just take a plane down over the ice barrier. Not into space, but I'm just talking about
right.
getting over the barrier.
To the Antarctic, right?
Yeah.
So
Because if I had if I
that's
had
the
a private
thing.
jet, if I had a private jet, I'm Justin Bieber, and one day I'm like, you know what, we're gonna
Dude, your hair is sweet.
we're gonna fuel
Or
this
was.
thing.
I think you cut it now. I don't.
We're gonna fuel this thing up. We're gonna go get some tats. Then we're gonna go get some cheesecake in New York, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna fuel up again, and we're gonna go over the ice barrier.
So,
Flat
I mean,
earthers say that is not possible.
well, it's not that it's not possible. It's extremely difficult. And I feel like I've seen some of these videos that you're talking about, or maybe not the exact one, where they go to a convention and they kind of interview people, and then they take a few clips, and they get their sound bite. But if you really look super deep into it, no flat earther says it's impossible to go there.
Yeah.
I mean, they might use that word, but realistically, it's not impossible. It's extremely difficult. I mean,
I'm
I
wondering
don't.
why though. I mean,
a
these
private-
people with unlimited resources like Bieber, or any. I mean, you could go through any A-lister from Hollywood or anywhere else. Like, why hasn't anybody? And how about the scientists that actually do go and research in Antarctica? I mean, there's researchers from all over the world researching penguins and Arctic
Well,
flows
sure.
and
I mean,
everything else, and nobody's not one of these people is reported on an ice barrier and the edge of space. You know,
well, I don't think it's going to be like you get to the wall and then, oh, yeah. Like I said, it's probably hundreds, if not thousands of miles from the shoreline to where an edge would be.
yeah,
I mean, if you look at how big Antarctica is on the globe, and then you just take that and basically cut it out from the center and make it around the flat earth, there's going to be like hundreds if not thousands of miles from the shoreline to what would be essentially the south pole or the wall or the dome, whatever, or the infinite plane, the edge.
hmm
I mean, I don't know that a scientist that's studying penguins on the shoreline is going to just accidentally walk into the wilderness of the biggest desert on earth and happen to 1,000 miles later find a wall or whatever, a dome or an edge. Like, I mean, you'd have to prepare for that. You'd need equipment, food. I mean, and we're talking extreme weathers too. It'd be the equivalent probably trying to go halfway across America, say from Colorado to either coastline, but wait, it's 50 below all the time.
right.
You don't just accidentally, oh, I'm studying penguins and I'm going to find an edge. I mean, yeah, there's people there. You can go there, but how far can you really get on your own? Like you said, you'd have to be a mega millionaire or a billionaire, and you'd have to have a lot of influence and power to go there and, just do it. Like, even if I wanted to do it right now, I can't go to Antarctica. I don't have the money.
Yeah.
And I probably wouldn't last very long. I mean, I live in Wisconsin. It gets cold here.
Well, I mean,
But I mean,
technically, if you really wanted to, you could backpack down through Argentina, and then you could hire a flight or a charter boat to take you from Argentina. I mean, because what is the distance between Argentina and Antarctica? It's not very far.
I don't know off the top of my head, but again,
I'm gonna look it up real
you,
quick. Distance.
okay, but you can't just take a regular boat. Again, you have to have a ship that has the reinforced hulls for any potential ice in the water.
Yeah, but the charter boats down there, I mean, those are all like ice cutter ships.
Okay, well then, if that was the case, then yeah, you could probably do that. But I can't do that right now. I'm not in a position to do that.
Southernmost point, how close it actually gets. There is a spot, I thought it was in Argentina, you know what? It might be Chile because I think it wraps all the way around. I was thinking of Patagonia, but now that I think about it, I think it is Chile, how it kind of cuts down and around, and I think it comes closer, but it's not by much. I mean, you're splitting hairs there, basically.
Right.
But you're still talking. I think this is saying like within like 1,000 miles, and 1,000 miles is pretty far. That's from here to here to Arkansas, basically.
Right.
So it's still a pretty far ways. But I mean, technically, if you had a boat, you could get there if you really wanted to.
If someone was determined enough to do it, they could. But just the average Joe that has a job, has a family, they're not going. They just can't, even if they want to.
Well, then let me ask this, okay? Is just not going, or I think it's great to propose theories. I'm not sure theories without evidence is really, or hypothesis without evidence are great ways to live. I mean, it's fun to propose these theories, but it's another thing to live a life based on, okay, well, I have evidence for this. I have scientific evidence for this. For me and you, when are we going to get the chance? Maybe never. Might not ever happen.
Maybe never. I would love to do it one day.
So for me and you, it's fun to propose these theories. But for me, I can't live a life to where I say, well, this is completely, not possible. It's completely, like, I'm open-minded to where I can say, well, it's plausible, based on what I've seen, what I've heard, this and this, but, it's fun to think about it, I guess, But at the same time, on the other side of the spectrum, I can't say, well, no, absolutely not, cutting it off. That's end of discussion, because I haven't been there. I haven't seen it. I haven't done. But, let's change topics real quick. And you mentioned von Braun earlier. Okay?
Yeah.
So, with von Braun, one of the big, especially when I was studying in school, and for those people that don't know, my major was history, particularly in World War II. That's where I spent a lot of my focus. I spent years learning German and researching and doing all kinds of, articles and papers and crap like that. But von Braun is, that whole scenario of World War II kind of, you and I have talked about this, how I really believe that it falls in this kind of shady part of history to where, it's really kind of a gray line of moral compass for a lot of different nations, including the U.S., particularly, like, there was a lot of atrocities that happened under the leadership of von Braun during World War II. And to which he was really never brought to justice. And it was because he had value as far as rocket propulsion, in particular dealing with V2 and the V1. But he had importance or important information that, America wanted, and therefore they kind of looked the other way.
Basically, the ends justifies the means. That's kind of what I, when we talked about it, that's kind of where we went. And, it is kind of relevant to, the other camp in, where was that, Mongolia or, northern China, where those atrocities were kind of happening as well, and the government kind of looked the other way as long as they got his research, And do you know do you remember what I'm talking about? As far as the camps in Mongolia, off the top of my head, I don't know. What I do know is, from the little research I've done recently, basically,
I think it was Manchuria. It was Manchuria. I made a mistake. Okay. Yeah.
From what I've gathered in my recent barely research, because I've been so busy with work, America got the scientists from Germany and Russia got the weapons.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a 50-50 split, so to speak. I mean, that's how I understand it. Would you say that's accurate?
Wait, say it again.
So America got the scientists from Germany, from Nazi Germany, and Russia got the weapons. The technology, maybe that's a better way to put it. Their tech, whatever tech.
Yeah, I think it's where their value was. Okay, so with Unit 731 in particular, and which is I was referring to in Manchuria, northern China, that kind of border plain, there was atrocities of human experimentation. Okay.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about.
Japanese.
I did do a little research into that.
Yeah, and it's like major taboo in school to bring it up. Especially
why is that?
I had a Japanese professor, and he was super, super nice guy. I loved him. His classes were super thorough. And we got right about to the edge of discussing Unit 731. And as soon as we got there, it was like a sharp 90-degree turn away from it,
So it's pretty much like, this is what happened. All right, let's move on.
Well, when I brung it up to him, I waited until everyone left class because I wanted to be respectful, and I didn't want to interrupt. I wanted him to continue with his lecture, but afterwards I felt like, okay, well, this is something I can go and talk to him about. And I went up and I was like, how do you feel about Unit 731, or how does this historical community? Because he went to school in Hawaii, and in Hawaii there's a really strong program for the Asian theme in World War II. There's a very strong, collegiate kind of research that's going on and ongoing. So I asked him, how do you feel about, Unit 731 or, for even the rape of Nanking? And it was, I can't remember exactly what he said, but you could tell right away that, like, this is going nowhere. We're not going to discuss this. There's not enough research to say it either happened or it didn't happen. And I was like, really? There's not enough research to prove that this happened? Like, I mean, dude, even if, not saying that Wiki is, especially in college, you never use Wiki, but you can use it as a baseline to do more research. But, even Wiki has a page on Unit 731. For all you that don't know, Unit 731 was one of the most horrific human experimentation sites on the face of the planet that's ever been conducted. It was way worse than Mengele with the Nazis and the Jewish people. It was very horrific. But my point to all of this is not to just bring out historical points such as Unit 731 or von Braun, but to point at the moral compass that kind of that was kind of lacking, because von Braun had his rockets, and Unit 731 is a very fuzzy gray line here, because Unit 731, the doctor I think he was a general or something, but he ended up turning over the information to the government, and they promised that, basically he could just go on his way. Okay. Now, this is the fuzzy line, is because the research that he turned over later led to antibiotics, and the antibiotics are in full use today. I mean, they cure tons of people that would normally die on a daily basis, perhaps in the millions. Okay, and without that research being done back then, those millions of people would be probably dying every year. So there comes the fuzzy gray line, because this guy did horrible things to innocent people, and I'm not going to bring him up here, but I mean, anybody that wants to go and research can research it. But I mean, there's some crazy, crazy, crazy stuff that was done. Stuff that your brain just, but it's one of those gray lines, like you said, the ends justify the means,
Mm-hmm.
So now this is my point. So as long as you have value, or as long as you have something that is of value, then no matter what crime that you commit, I mean, is this the kind of stuff that, those generations were sending future generations? That as long as you have value, no crime is too big that we can't just push it under the rug, and you know what I mean? You can
Apparently, that's the message.
You can commit mass genocide,
intentional or unintentional. That's exactly the message they sent.
I mean, you can commit mass genocide, and it's okay because you have value. We need what you got.
Yep.
It's the most ridiculous thing ever to me, because I mean, but then again, you have that fuzzy gray line, because it saves millions of people today. But it doesn't erase the thousands of people that suffered in those times. Those voices are only silent because we don't have pictures or video or their catalog names in most cases. They're nameless faces in nameless graves. It's the only reason why they don't have value. If there was a name attached to every grave, or a video, like today, if everyone had a video and pictures, and you could see their high school, yearbooks and their kids' faces and stuff like that, then all of a sudden they have a little bit more value,
Yeah.
And the atrocity seems worse and worse. But because we don't have that, we don't have pictures to look at, we don't have their life story laid out in front of us, well, their lives didn't mean that much, you know?
Right. And to point that out, I had never heard, or if I did, I don't remember having Unit 731 until you had brought it up to me a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that just goes to show that, yeah, there were nameless, faceless people to me, because I had never heard about it. And even when I tried to go, search out whatever, information for myself, as far as I can remember, I've never run across that. So, yeah, that's what happens. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, man. And, the thing that I think we could take away and that we could reflect on, maybe as a society to do, or today, is that, these things didn't stop with the 40s. They continued, through many different wars, through many different loss of life. And it wasn't just America either. I mean, many countries, Cambodia, had their, genocides, and, Uganda had their genocides, and there's a lot of fingers and a lot of pies and a lot of skewed morality that just kind of swayed from side to side during those periods. Von Braun is an interesting character, and if any one of you decides, listening, to go and research Von Braun, he's very interesting. The other one that we talked about is Unit 731. That's fascinating as well. There's a lot of material. I mean, most people, when they hear about World War II atrocities, they instantly go to Mengele. And there's, a plethora of books on Mengele. But, these are kind of offshoot, research topics, I guess, that are very fascinating to talk about, very fascinating to think about, because you think about the future implications of what these drugs, or what the research did. Whereas Mengele, if you think about it, his research was destroyed. Okay? Because the Germans, especially the Nazi Party as a whole, they were very efficient in destroying evidence because they didn't want war crimes. They didn't want to be put on charge for war crimes. So they destroyed as much document. They were very thorough. They were extremely thorough. In certain cases, they were extremely thorough in writing these documents. So they would list how many, and sometimes there was fudged numbers. But when they were, the Einsatzgruppen, when they were out and, eliminating Jewish, communities, they were extremely efficient about writing the numbers. But then when it came to destroying these documents or these papers, they were extremely efficient in destroying. So come time for Mengele to be hunted down, well, all of a sudden his value it's not found, And there's a lot of discussion on really what his research led to, anyways. Did it really do anything? Did they find any cures? Or, a lot of it was gene experimentation, trying to find a certain, Aryan genes, and things like that. So there is a lot of debate, like, was his research really of any value in the first place? And then there's other arguments to say, well, his research was all destroyed, so all of a sudden his value went down, which means you can continually, perpetually chase him around the planet until he's dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. As long as you have value, Matt, you can do whatever you want, buddy.
I can do whatever I want.
So I guess the goal in life is to find your value, and not just your value, but your value to the next person above you or the government. If you have value to the government, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it seems to be what the story is.
And you could argue that Hollywood is picture perfect of this. Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, Hollywood is picture perfect.
Yeah, to this example. Of this example.
I mean,
because if you have money, You have value. You're in the Hollywood system. You're a big actor, or Justin Bieber. Any one of the society highs. There is nothing you can do that is too much to get out of. Whereas, like you or me, okay, we get caught with drugs in the back seat. We slapped our wives.
I don't get caught. I don't get caught with drugs. I never been caught with drugs.
We slap our wives and we throw beer bottles at a policeman, and you and I are going to prison for like 20 years. Versus like some Hollywood celeb or music celeb. They do it and they're like, slap on the wrist. You got value. Just pay us some money and it'll all go away. It'll be as
Lindsay Lohan.
it'll be as if you never did anything.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. It seems to be.
All right, buddy. Well, listen, I got to go tuck my kids into bed. It's late at night, but I guess thank you everyone for anyone that's listening, and we hope you enjoyed. This was our first kind of trial run. We're doing this just kind of as a fun thing for us to get together and talk about odd topics, and we didn't really pick this topic. This just kind of developed on its own, and I kind of like the way that it worked. It's not something that I usually talk a lot about, but I found it fascinating, and we hope you did too. So, Matt,
before you go,
yeah,
I wanted to get your reaction to. Remember, I told you I had a story I wanted to tell you.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, and
Okay.
I didn't want to tell you. I wanted to get your real life reaction. Okay, so I'm out of town working, and Rebecca texts me, and she's like, okay, so a little bit of backstory before I keep going. I always forget to do this. So, I live in Wisconsin. I live in the middle of Wisconsin, and rent is fairly affordable here. And I happen to find a really good deal on the duplex that we rent. It's a house. It's an upper and a lower, whatever duplex, whatever you want to call it. And I live in the lower. We've lived here for almost 4 years. So the guy who lives upstairs, I don't know how long he's actually lived here, but he one time claimed to me that he'd lived here, that he's been here for over 30 years. So our rent is extremely affordable, and pretty much one of the reasons is because of the guy who lives upstairs. Now, he, over the last 4 years, has had some behavioral issues. I've talked to my father about this. My dad is a psychologist. He went to school for psychology. And his conclusion was the same as what I had suspected, in that my dad, based on what I told him, thinks that he's probably schizophrenic. And I think that's probably the case. So, back to sort of the story. In November, the owner of our house changed property management companies.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an owner who I don't know who them. I've never talked to them, and they have a management company who collects the rent and takes care of whatever issues need to be taken care of, supposedly. And the owner is trying to sell the house. So it's been on the market for, I don't even know. At this point, it's been probably 500 to 600 days. It's been on the market a really long time. And they're only asking $55,000 for the house.
Mm-hmm.
So you can tell by that statement right there that it's been in the house for probably close to 600 days, and it's only $55,000. There's issues.
Mm-hmm.
The house needs a lot of repairs, and they haven't been done, which is why we got a new management company on November 2nd. So after we got a new management company, Rebecca, I like I said, I was out of town, and my wife had contacted them and said, okay, great, we have a lot of repairs for you that have been piling up over the last almost 4 years. and we have a leak in our pantry. We have a kitchen, and then there's like a walk-in pantry. It's not huge, but it's pretty nice for considering the amount of space we have. It's a pretty big walk-in pantry, food pantry, and we have a leak in there in the ceiling. And so she called the management company and said, "Can you please come take a look at it? It's been leaking for a long time, and we need to get it fixed. It's that's where our food is at." And so they came, and the property management employees went up to the second floor, and she said that they came running down and they were gagging, and one of them threw up in the yard, and she asked them what was going on, and apparently my neighbor upstairs was defecating in the bathtub. Like, not just that time, he has been defecating in the bathtub because apparently his toilet stopped working. So, so the logical conclusion is, if your toilet stops working, you don't go to the supermarket 3 blocks away to take a crap. You shit in the tub.
Hold on. To that note, my uncle, when we went over when he passed away, we went over, okay, and my dad had told me, like, what did this all boils down to? I think it's just a mental health issue. Like,
yeah,
I really do. I think it's just a strong mental health issue, and I think when people are really, really mentally ill, this is their mindset, because when we went over to my uncle's to clean out his house, there was stuff piled up to the ceiling. I mean, really, really bad, like hoarding issues, like galore.
Right.
Okay. There was stuff just piled up, newspapers, crayons. I mean, you name it, you were seeing it, The carpet hadn't been vacuumed in like 25, 30 years. So there's just like, you couldn't even see carpet. Like, literally couldn't see it.
When you moved the newspaper, the carpet was a different color.
Yes, like the original color, and you're like, holy crap,
I've actually been in houses like that because I've worked on quite a few hoarder jobs, actually.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
We went in, and we went in the bathroom, and I went in first, okay? And I'm not exaggerating. This is like for real, okay? Went in the bathroom, and I noticed right away, like, that smell. The human defecation smell, okay? It's just huge. Just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, it smells like a septic tank in here, So I kind of leaned like near the toilet, and I noticed there was like just towels and everything in front. And I'm looking, and the toilet is just like full, like to the very brim. And it's not like water. It's not water.
No, it's all dried out.
It's all dried out poop.
I've been on jobs like that too, man.
Yeah, and then I look over in the shower, and the bathtub has like the whole bottom is just like feces everywhere.
Oh.
And then I notice, wait a second, the sink has it in it too.
Oh.
And then I realize the towels in front are covering a bucket. And the bucket is full. And the towels are like someone dookied in the towels. They dookied on the floor and then just tried to like cover it with like newspaper and towel.
Yeah, that's messed up.
I really do. I think it's just...
I was going to say that's a little more extreme than... I've been on a few jobs like that. So yeah. I do, for people listening, I do water remediation. Which is basically if you get a leak in your basement or your kitchen or whatever, we clean it up. But we also do trauma jobs. So I've been on a few jobs where stuff like this has actually happened. And yeah, I've never seen it like in the sink and in the shower. Yeah. But I was at a house where a guy who had passed away, that's why we were there, because he was dead. I mean, we don't ever see the body, but we were there to clean up the blood in the house. So he had 3 bathrooms, one on each floor. He had a basement, a main floor, and a second floor. And 2 of the bathrooms were like how you described the toilet in your uncle's house. Yeah. And for whatever reason, the showers were not touched. But then he had feces smeared all over the wall. It was to the point where like we actually didn't realize it was feces until later on. It just looked like dirt. It looked like somebody had dirty hands, and you come in after maybe you're a mechanic and you don't wash your hands, and you touch whatever and you get grease all over.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. But as we got further into the job, like, oh, there's feces on the wall in the bathroom, and that's not dirt on the wall in the hallway. That's feces. Oh, that's not dirt on the railing going up the stairs. That's feces.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, we literally had to pull both toilets out and put them in garbage bags and put them in a dumpster. We had to pull all the carpet in the entire house because in the living room where his seat was, where he'd watch TV or whatever, there was urine and defecation on the carpet. So through the carpet, through the padding, and onto the subfloor, and at the edge of his bed, same thing. There was urine and defecation all over the carpets where it soaked through the padding and onto the subfloor. So we had to tear all the carpet and the whole, it was actually a duplex, out. And then we had to put air scrubbers in the home because his home didn't smell like death. It didn't smell like feces. It actually reeked of urine so bad that it outstayed the death and the poop smell for weeks. We had air scrubbers there for weeks. And it was bad. That was my first trauma job I had ever been on.
That's horrible, dude. That's horrible. Well, and on that note,
have a great day.
All right. Well, we will. I guess we'll be posting another one pretty soon, as soon as we can get back together and do this again, Matt. All right.
Yeah, I can't wait. And thanks everyone in the future because this isn't live. We're recording it, so you're not listening to us now.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to get back on some of those topics we didn't finish talking about earlier. I feel like there's hours and hours and hours of conversations we can have on them.
Oh, yeah.